In this video I try to explain what a syringe looks like without actually showing you one, but more recently I smuggled this used one out of work after I used it on a pig, and I will explain a little bit further. That's your syringe there. That's your little connector to your needle or needle stick. In the bigger syringes, these are actually to one side, and the smaller ones, they're in the middle. This is a standardised 6mm. Some of them are 5, but this one they give you a little bit more, 6. There's your plunger, moves in and out there. This is your needle. Only the very small ones like a biro use 20 gauge, but this is one of your standardised 18 gauge needles that fits a hell of a lot of different types. And that's your actual needle there, or your needle stick. This one's a little bit bent, but there's your plastic piece that attaches onto that. You basically just press it on. It's a good idea to press it on with its cover on, like so. Your end there is cut on an angle, as you probably will realise. That fits in quite neatly, and then when you get them, they actually got another little cap that goes over the top here, a little clear cap, and you just twist that off and the sticker breaks away, breaks in half, and then you whack him on like so. Or you can pull the sides, whatever, but don't do it with the cover off, whatever you do. And then you go like that, stab it into your little bottle and pull your plunger out, and you'll notice there's a little bit of air that builds up, so then you got to sort of just hold it upright, give it a bit of a flick with your thumb or one of your fingers or whatever, and then the air bubbles come to the top, and then you squeeze your plunger up a bit, let some of the air out, then get a bit more of the gear, and yeah, I just spilled a bit of painkiller out of this one on my mattress before. Alrighty, I'm going to tell you guys how to give something a needle. Now, I am no good at intravenous injections because I haven't done it. If you want to learn how to do that, find a intravenous drug user, a heroin addict, a speed addict, and they'll probably show you how it's done. I do a lot of intramuscular injections, primarily of penicillin and sometimes painkiller, and there's a whole stack of other things that have even control respiratory diseases in pigs and all this other shit that I don't often give and I'm not going to go into. I should say that we don't inject hormones into the pigs, but then again nobody does, because now they have a little thing that it's a drug that affects your thyroid, or the pig's thyroid, to produce more growth hormone. So they don't give it any hormones, but they give it a drug which affects the thyroid, which then makes it produce too much growth hormone. But I'm not going to rabbit on about that. I'll tell you what, these little pour-on anti-flea things that you're supposed to pour on the back of the head, literally half of them I'll stuff up with these cats, even though they're worth $10 or more for each one. But if I had an intramuscular injection for putty cat, I would actually find that easier to give than those stupid little things you pour on the back of the head to stop the fleas. All the injections I do are intramuscular, so basically, generally speaking, not all the time, but most times, we just whack it straight in the arse. It's the biggest muscle, you can't miss, it's that deep that you're not probably going to hit any bone, so on and so forth. But there is, well, long story short, Viagra equivalent for pigs. Not exactly Viagra, but it makes them horny, and some of the old pigs that have got good genetics need a bit of assistance, if you know what I mean. And so I have given shit tons of those, more than I could count. Now, that one is often given in the neck. That is a very small syringe. It's only about the size of a biro, because you only give it 1/2 mil, and that's no big deal. When I give those, you wouldn't believe how quick they go. I basically go and slap the needle in, and I just sort of keep following through with my thumb, and so it's just sort of like whack, just like that. I mean, that's how in, squeeze, out. That's literally how quick it is when I give one of those. But it's only 1/2 mil. It's not that hard to do. We give those in the neck, and there's a particular triangular area of the neck where it's muscle and you're not going to hit anything, so we give it in there. With these smaller syringes, they'll take the smaller needles, and I think they take, I can't remember, I think it's 20 gauge, one's 18 and one's 20, but the small needles like a biro, the small syringes rather, that are about the size of a biro, have a smaller needle, and then you have well, literally 5 different kinds of bigger syringes we have, because we've got 6 different kinds in total. They take the larger needle. Now your needles will come, they're basically, I should have taken some of this shit from work so I can show you a real one, but we haven't done any injections in quite a while because everybody's been healthy, but it's basically you got like a little plastic cup, and the needle comes out of that little plastic cup, and then you have a entire little cylinder that clicks over the top of that and actually goes click and clicks into place, which covers your needle, which means you can walk down the row or whatever with this needle, climb over fences and all that sort of shit without accidentally stabbing yourself. And that's one thing that comes in a big roll of these packets. And then you got your syringes. Some of them are individually packeted, some aren't. Just depends on your brand. And you'll pull one of those out, but you've got to get the right size needle to fit with the right size syringe. And most of them are the same except those smaller ones. Depends on what you're given, to what, as opposed to what sizes. There are shorter needles, there are longer needles of the same size, but you've got to make sure that your syringe size and your needle size match up. Otherwise your little plastic cut piece on your end of your needle won't fit on your little nipple that comes out of your syringe, and then if that doesn't work, then you're stuffed all together. With pigs, they're not people. They're crazy, and they're about 700 pounds in weight for some of the old boys, and they get severely shitty when they've got a needle in their ass. And so you're trying to hang onto a needle, and they're trying to shake their butt left, right, left, right, left, right. And they also try and ram your hand up against the gate as you're holding on in the hope that you'll drop the syringe or you'll take it out, or you'll just to stop your hand from getting hit against metal pipe gates. And there's a few methods to get past all this bullshit, which are good for animals and maybe good for crazy people. If for whatever reason you've got to ever deal with a friggin' mental patient that's going off their nut, or somebody who's in severe pain, who can't stop themselves going crackers. And I know crystal meth addicts just go berserk and start kicking the shit out of everything at times, as well. Now, I'll use these two as an example. You've got the potato peeler will be the syringe, and the spoon will be your needle. What happens is your nipple that comes off your syringe, if it's going to break anywhere, it'll break the nipple off the syringe. So you've got your little cupped on piece on your needle that you've clicked down over your nipple on your syringe. Now your nipple will break off level with the end of the syringe, because as you know, when a syringe comes down, it's, you know, down like that, and you got your little bit of friggin' shit you push with your rubber, and it comes to an end, and it's a pretty dramatic end, but it's very slightly cone-shaped, and then you just got a nipple that comes straight out. It'll break off there, level with the end of it. So to avoid that, when you go in, you don't sort of just hold the shaft of the syringe. You actually put your hand over, basically just over the start of, or the end, whatever you want to call it, of the needle, where the needle comes out of the little plastic cup that it's moulded onto. And sort of a little bit around the base of your syringe to support where that nipple is, because that's your weak point, and if it's going to break, that's where it will break every time. On occasion, you'll bend needles. It's actually quite rare. Well, if you use a decent brand, it's quite rare to break the needle off. What you'll do is you'll bend the thing if the pig goes berserk. I had a very small pig, and it had a few issues and still has an issue, which, yeah, never mind. But it was really getting shitty, and I bent the needle 3 times in a row. It's usually like my needle bending days are over generally, but this little sod bent the needle 3 times in a row. So sometimes you've got to straighten it out. I recommend wearing nitrile gloves, not even leather gloves, unless you've got Kevlar inside, but nitrile, which are your black disposable gloves that are quite expensive because they're sort of, theoretically, they're harder to pierce. Don't put it past it that you won't go through leather gloves. You will go through leather gloves because when you get an old pig and you stab a needle into his ass, it is like trying to get the needle through leather gloves. And when you think about it, they actually have pig-skin gloves in this country that people use. Hell, they've even got pig-skin couches that you can buy here. And it's actually very nice kind of a couch, but it wears out very fast. Very supple leather, but it wears out quick. And same with the gloves. Very supple leather, wears out very quick compared to cow leather. But what you do as you come in, usually you got to let the animal know you're there, as opposed to just come up like a serial killer. And you basically just hold it, as I was saying, and you don't sort of go in gently and push it gently. You pull back and you bang, slam it in, and of course the pig will jump. But if you don't do that, you'll bend the needle over and over and over. The thing with these small needles, like the Viagra equivalent one, that's a finer needle, and they're easier to get in to the neck because the neck's nice soft skin. But when Piggy sits on concrete slats half the day on his ass gets very calloused, and simply the skin on their ass is thicker. You say, okay, well, I'll use a finer needle, and because it's smaller, it'll go in easier. Not really. The leather is thicker. You're more likely to bend the needle and just make a mess of it all, and just keep bending the small needle because the needle itself isn't strong enough to punch through the skin, even though it's a thinner needle. So it's harder to get the bigger needles in, but you need those because those needles have got enough strength to actually puncture the skin. And that's why you can't just sort of gently come up and just go like that. You've got to literally take a bit of a swing at it, bang, slam it in. And they'll go berserk. Now, what you'll end up having to do, you'll have to have your hand, as you sort of had your hand like that initially, to hold, where the nipple is on the syringe, and you've slammed in. By the time you get it in a bit, next thing you notice that if the nipple's back where my index finger is there, your thumb will be basically level with the animal's skin. And you've got to hold it like that, because as he starts shaking his butt, you basically, the way it is, you end up with your hand almost like a cup against the animal's skin. And as he's shaking around, you are supporting the structural weakness of the syringe nipple, and you won't have it break off as he's trying to shake his butt left and right. There's another thing to it too. By holding the base of the syringe, they've got tabs on the syringe and you're supposed to grab hold of the tabs and go like that. Well, in today's cheap-ass, shitty Chinese world, the tabs aren't really big enough to get your fingers on. They're only as small as they can ridiculously make them and get away with it. So sometimes you go like that, and I'm not joking. It might be all right with certain things, but when you're using penicillin, it's like as thick as hell, and in pushing it, you will almost break the tabs off the side of the syringe. So, by holding like that, or shall I say, like that, you're holding the base of the syringe, and then you can literally get your right hand or your other free hand and push the plunger there straight down without needing to use your index finger and your middle finger to hold the tabs. That's another good way. That's a good reason to hold it that way. Because, you know, as I said, if it's thick enough, you will break the bloody tabs, almost break them trying. And you're trying to get this shit in as fast as you can, but you don't want to break the tabs, because if you break the tabs, then you're not going to get it in at all. But you're going like hell, because this thing's getting really angry really quick, and you need to get it in as quick as you can. So, yeah, but that's sort of... one of the benefits of holding it there is that you don't even need to use the tabs, and you can just push the plunger with your other hand, even with the palm of your other hand, to get it in. And if you get the right area, you're not going to have Piggy hit the gate. If you get right on the side of his leg, well, of course he's going to hit the friggin' gate. If you try and go more straight, not too close to the tail, because you don't want to get it in his intestines or his bowel, but a bit beside it, then he's got less chance of grating your hand against the fence there. The other thing that happens, sometimes I'm trying to go like hell squeezing this shit in, and what will actually happen is there'll be such a pressure build-up that the needle will actually pop off the syringe nipple, and then it'll go, and I'll have like a heap of the medication sprayed on the fur of his ass, which is not good. But you actually, as you do that, you can actually feel it go, and you can feel the syringe nipple pop out from the needle cup. Like, you can actually feel the two of them sort of go pop and try and separate, and as soon as you realise that's happened, you've got to stop squeezing. But you won't know what it feels like until you've actually done it for the first time and blown a whole heap of medication all over his butt and got none through the needle. But, you know, if you get a decent brand, you won't really have too many problems straightening any bent needles. And I have heard of cases where the actual plastic cup the needle is moulded onto has snapped off at that level, but I've never done it myself. I've never seen it. I've only heard of cases. But if you stick to good brands, you shouldn't have a trouble, and you should be able to bend out straight needles and continue to use them, as opposed to walk back 150 metres to change a bloody needle, then go back to a pig that is already, in the last 5 minutes, really pissed because he sees you back a second time, as opposed to you just straighten that needle, go straight again and go in before his anger builds up much more. But yeah, that's the way that intravenous injections are done, and I hope that one day that will help you out. And I'll tell you what, if it was easier to get intravenous injections for anything cat related, I would go that way, because or intramuscular injections rather. For cats I would go that way, because I'm so much more used to giving a syringe than any other kind of medication. And, you know, all these stupid pills and bullshit that you give cats, worm pills, you know what happens. Everyone knows what happens. They spit the bloody things out. And then you've lost a $15 pill, like Black Kitty done on me the other day. Great. Anyway, I hope that helps you out in some way.